What is going on, guys? Welcome back to Met Central. And you know what? Call me stupid, call me a sucker. I'm for some reason getting an itch, and I'm for some reason ready to embrace what the season is about to be. And for some reason, I am in the mood to talk about the Mets, so much so that I'm actually wearing Mets clothes right now because I am for some reason just in a mood where I'm ready to go down the City Field on opening day and watch this team get going and watch them play. Am I saying that this season is going to be a World Series season? No. If it is, then great. I would love to be surprised and wrong, but I am ready to just embrace the fact that this team has pretty much no expectations and is so boom or bust that I can't even be mad no matter what the result is. If they suck this year, I can't even be mad at it because of the fact that this roster, like I said, has so much boom or bust on it. If they end up exceeding expectations, then yeah, I could end up just being very happy about it. And all of a sudden, I'm going to Citi Field in October, waving the orange towel and screaming my head off, clapping for 2 strikes, chanting at the other pitch or whatever it may be. But we're going to talk about it. I really don't have a format with this, so I'm just going to kind of shoot it and just talk about the Mets in terms of how I'm feeling right now. Before we do, please be sure to leave a like on the video if you do enjoy. Subscribe if you guys are new, especially if you're Met fans. We're going to cover them all season long here, and turn on your notifications so you know when I upload or go live next. But I think I want to start by talking about David Stearns because he was on foul territory. I think it was today or yesterday, and he had a couple quotes that were interesting there. So he ends up talking about the Yamamoto situation and how the Mets couldn't end up getting him. And what he was talking about with Yamamoto, this is paraphrasing the quote, but he said, I didn't have as much info on Yamamoto because I was with a team that wasn't shopping in that aisle of the grocery store. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, but we will pursue players in similar markets down the road, and hopefully next time it works out. So I'm paraphrasing what was said there, but that definitely is something that I think all of us Met fans are relieved to hear, because all of us have been very disappointed, let's just be quite frank, in terms of the money that has been spent this offseason, or I should say lack thereof, spent this offseason. But at the same time, this just shows that the Mets are becoming more of a smarter organization off the rip. And I get it, and I'm someone too that screamed earlier in the offseason, they got to go get this guy, they got to go get this guy. If the market is too much for certain guys, then hold your ground. Hold your ground and build a deeper team and move on and go to the next guy and get what you can and spend money the right way. Because there's no reason to go over the luxury tax for just, I don't know, Hector Neris, let's just say, which, you know, I wanted a guy like Hector Neris in this bullpen, but there's no reason to go out there and spend $10 million on Hector Neris when you could go out and get Fujinami, Diekman, amongst other relief pitchers for a similar price point and add depth to the bullpen. Because what's something that the Mets have lacked over the past few years with the pitching staff as a whole? Depth. We've been screaming at nauseum about how garbage, like, we're seeing Steven Nagosic, who coming in the games, Denny Reyes. I'm trying to think of other guys. Phil Bickford we might see next year, which, you know, I'm not a fan of, but there's definitely more depth options in there. And, you know, we're used to seeing just guys like that, like Paul Sewald when he was here before he was a good relief pitcher. Seeing, I don't know, Antonio Bastardo, watching them overpay for Anthony Swarzak. I was thinking of Zach Wheeler. For some reason, that was on the mind when I was saying Swarzak. Also, his last name has Zach in it. Leave me alone. But you get the point where they've overspent on relief pitchers before, and now they're just trying to create more depth in the organization in terms of the bullpen and the pitching staff, which I cannot hate. Like, I support this a ton, and you know, a lot of it is going to be boom or bust. I'm not going to deny it, but you do have guys that you are familiar with, at least in the bullpen, because of the fact that they went out and made some acquisitions by bringing back Adam Ottavino at a cheap price point, by keeping Brooks Raley around. Edwin Diaz is going to come back. Obviously, that's the expensive piece of the bullpen, but you still have him around. That's I wouldn't say it's a sure thing, because I think there is going to be rust with Diaz to start the season, and I don't think that we're going to like how things look with Diaz in the first few outings, because of the fact that it's hard to come back. That's just the nature of it from a year off, especially from a serious knee injury like that kept him out for an entire season. It's hard to come back and just get right back into the rhythm and be what you were, especially because he was the reliever of the year and pitched arguably the best reliever season in MLB history. I'm saying arguably before people get mad at me and say Mariano Rivera or whoever else they want to mention, Zach Britton. I digress. You have some sure things there. Jake Diekman, I would say, is more of a certainty as well. But then you do have your wild cards. What is Fujinami going to be back there? I still like the idea of bringing in a Fujinami. Could Drew Smith unlock another level? If he's working on some extra pitches, maybe there's something more to Drew Smith that I'm underestimating, that I have been underestimating. And then I'm trying to think, I mean, Michael Tonkin, you kind of know what he is. He's going to give you multiple innings at times. So that's going to be nice. McGill might get reps in the bullpen. Budo might get reps in the bullpen. Peterson's going to come back and might get reps in the bullpen or in the rotation. But there's so many guys in this bullpen too that could give you more innings, which I like too, because that's something that I had as a gripe with when they signed Severino at first, is how are they going to make up for the lack of innings? Well, we just needed the rest of the offseason to play out because the bullpen is kind of forming into what we'll see them potentially fill out in terms of innings. And sure enough, they did, because Tonkin could give multiple innings. If McGill's back there, he could. Lopez, maybe you could stretch out for an extra inning. Drew Smith, we know he's capable of eating some innings. Phil Bickford could eat multiple innings. And then you have your guys like Ottavino, Raley, and Diaz in the back end of the bullpen that will give you those shutdown innings when you need them. So I like the makeup a lot. And you know what? The pitching staff, in terms of the starting staff, I definitely have question marks, because what is Severino going to be? I'm not entirely sure. I'm not entirely sure of what Luis Severino is going to be. If he's healthy, I think they have something there. Do I think he's going to be the Cy Young caliber pitcher he was at one point? No. But there could be something there where you get a little bit of a middle ground. And if you're getting like a 3.5 ERA from Luis Severino and he's going out there and throwing the ball every 5 days, I'm not going to complain. Senga, I have questions about because of how good he was last year. Because once he started to adjust, I should say, how is it going to be when hitters adjust to him now? Is he going to be able to adjust again and work on the fly? I don't have too many doubts with him, but I think we're going to see regression there just a bit. Sean Manaea is an interesting fit there. Obviously, Katana pitching the whole year, I think, is definitely something that is going to go a long way for this team. I think he was given some solid starts down the stretch. Obviously, not an ace-level guy like he, was for like one season or two when he had a insanity run. But there is something to it. And then Adrian Hauser could give you some quality starts, some decent starts in the back end of the rotation. But I don't think that Carlos Mendoza and crew are going to be afraid to step into the bullpen too early in these games, where in years prior, you watch Carlos Carrasco just let home runs up at will in the first inning, and it's like, all right, well, we're just going to wave the white flag here. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think if things start to look ugly early, say Adrian Hauser's on the bump and he lets up 3-4 runs in the first inning, I think Mendoza's not going to shy away from going to the bullpen if he sees something that he likes there and, has some guys that are available to eat up some innings like Tonkin. He has him to go to really just stop the bleeding potentially. And he's not going to do it all the time, but that's just the point, that you have guys back there where you could go to the bullpen earlier than you would be able to in previous years, because in previous years, it's, oh no, here comes, Trevor Williams was lights out in the bullpen. I'm not going to knock him, but it's like, oh no, here comes Denny Reyes coming out of the bullpen to try and eat some innings. It's, oh no, Steven Nagosic's coming out of the bullpen to eat innings. Oh no, Sean Reed Foley is going to come in and squat and try to eat up some innings. I just have more faith in the depth, and maybe I'm delusional. Maybe I'll look stupid in a couple months, but to me, I like the makeup of the pitching staff way more. And then there's prospects that could come through. Christian Scott, I wouldn't rule out to maybe get a cup of coffee here and there. Mike Vassell could get a cup of coffee. So there are some pitchers that intrigue me too. And you know what? Come the trade deadline, if we're looking at a spot where this rotation maybe just needs, if Senga could be a high-level starter, then you get one more high-level starter. And obviously it might cost a lot to get, but if they're in a position to, you got the ammo to do it now because you've built up the farm and because you've been more conservative. You could go out there and get a guy to pair with Senga at the top end of the rotation, and then all of a sudden, rolling into October potentially, assuming they get there, you have at the top of your rotation, and you have the depth, and then you have, you know, X player that you acquire, Kodai Senga, which I don't know how he's going to be on short rest, so that's a little bit of a question mark. And then Jose Quintana, which I don't hate going into a 3-game wildcard set in that ideal scenario. Or if Severino bounces back, you get Severino up there, and then Quintana's waiting in the wings. So all of a sudden, that's looking a lot better. And then in terms of the lineup, with that perspective, I think next year you're going to see them go way more splashy with the lineup. And he said if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, which, you know, kind of does suck, but it is what it is. I mean, it was out of their control. They did what they could to get Yamamoto, but they got used as leverage. He wanted to be a Dodger. I'm not going to hate on Cohen, Stearns, and crew for that one. But with the lineup, I think next year you're going to see them, assuming Soto hits the open market, you're going to see them actually pursue him. If Brett Beatty isn't the answer at third base, or if Vientos, maybe you see them target an Alex Bregman next offseason. So I think that, you know, this is going to be more of a feel it out year, because that's another thing that he was talking about. He said, I believe we need young players to play and we have to provide room for them on the roster, but there has to be a balance with certainty. And I agree there that you got to play the young guys at least a bit to see what you got. But at the same time, obviously, if Juan Soto's on the market, no offense to Ryan Clifford, which, you know, I still have hope for him, but I'm just saying in the scenario, like, the outfield's clogged up at that point, maybe, and, you know, Juan Soto's on the market, like, sorry, Ryan Clifford, but Juan Soto's a young player, and I don't know if you know him, but he's one of the best in the game. But I was just using an example there. But regardless, they're going to still big name hunt at some point, which does make me feel that eases my concerns a bit. Again, I just think this year is more of a feel it out year. And I like the idea of pursuing JD Martinez, who we're hearing rumors about them potentially getting, and how they're keeping tabs on him. It takes away at bats from Vientos, so I'm curious to see how they'd balance that out, or maybe they do view Vientos as a guy that is going to get more reps at third base than we think, and maybe third base becomes the platoon situation where Beatty goes in and faces the right-handed pitchers, and then Vientos faces the left-handed pitchers. Maybe we get something like that, but then you question, where's Joey Wendell slot into the occasion? Well, to me, that's a no-brainer. Maybe McNeil gets reps in the outfield, and then you play Wendell at second if you want to get him reps. Not that I'm moved by Joey Wendell, but I'm just, you know, saying how you get guys to fit in. Plus, injuries do happen, of course, so let's not pretend they don't. But I like just how much I could talk about the depth of this team, and I think JD Martinez would go such a long way and would really solidify this lineup to me to say this is going to be a wild card team. And, you know, for me, I still think they finished third in the division regardless. I think the Phillies and Braves are still better. But to me, like, you look at what the lineup could be if they go out and get JD Martinez. You're talking about, I'm not saying in order, but you're looking at a top 5 in the lineup of, again, in no order, maybe Nimmo. No, I will go in order. You got Nimmo leading off, let's just say. And then I don't know if they're going to put Pete in the 2-hole. Maybe they have him hit cleanup. I would personally go Lindor in the 2-hole if it was up to me, but obviously it's not. I would then go maybe Jeff McNeil, or maybe go Pete in the 3-hole. JD. Or you could maybe go actually Nimmo. I mean, you got way more options with JD in the lineup. Maybe you could go with something like Nimmo, then you get Pete in the 2-hole, Lindor hitting third, JD hitting cleanup, and then you go with a guy like McNeil hitting 5th, especially if he bounces back. That's a pretty good option there. But at the same time, with the way he gets on base, maybe you want him towards the top of the lineup. but you do have some flexibility there as well. And then the bottom of the lineup's kind of a mixed bag. You get Alvarez probably hitting 6 there, and then you get your Martes and Tyrone Taylors, whoever's playing. Bader's probably going to hit 9th if I had to guess. Beatty or Vientos is down there in the lineup. So I just like the certainty more in the lineup if they go out and get JD Martinez, where you could plug him in and get some extra home runs, get some extra power that this team has lacked. Obviously, you can't play the field, but still, you get more certainty in terms of the lineup, which I think would go a long way. But even then, I still, again, call me a sucker, but I have faith because I want to take you back to the 2016 Milwaukee Brewers. I'm going to read what their roster looked like, and you could tell me honestly, am I crazy for saying the Mets are better than this roster? Jonathan Lucroy, he was very good at the time, had a very good season that year, but Alvarez could maybe play up to that par. I'm not saying he's going to hit 299. He's probably going to hit more 260, but you're going to get way more power there than the 13 home runs Lucroy provided. Chris Carter, I mean, Pete Alonso's going to put up more home runs probably than Chris Carter, and Carter put up 41 that year. Scooter Gennett at second. I like the upside of McNeil way more there. Lindor, I mean, he's better than Jonathan VR. And, Jonathan VR had a good year that year. I'm not going to take it away from him, but let's be honest. Lindor's better on both sides of the ball. We've seen Jonathan VR, granted a lesser version of him as a Met, but we know that Lindor's a better player, and especially now he's going to be healthy, which the fact that he did what he did last year, imagine what he's going to do healthy this year. Then you get to third base. They had Aaron Hill there. That might be a little bit of a toss-up in terms of what the Mets get there. Again, that's where the boom or bust comes in of what will Beatty and or Vientos be. Ryan Braun had a good season, but if Nimmo's playing left, I'm comfortable there with similar type production. I don't know if he's going to put up 30 home runs, but if he does, great. I don't know if he's going to put up a 305 average. I could see Nimmo giving you a solid 850 OPS, which Braun had 900, but then you get to the two other positions. Kirk Neuenhuis center. Come on, man. Like, I'm not a big Harrison Bader guy, but if Marte's getting reps in the outfield and all of a sudden Nimmo's playing more center, or even Tyrone Taylor, I like the chances of those guys over Kirk Neuenhuis, who had a 709 OPS that year. And then you got Domingo Santana, which he had a fine little year, but my point is that the Mets roster, we've seen them outperform a roster like the Milwaukee Brewers in 2016. And that was their first year under Stearns, which was a feel it out year. And they were 73 and 89, which isn't great, but for a feel it out year, that's kind of what the Mets had a similar year last year. And, I think they could get better production. I think the pitching staff for the Mets is better than the Brewers pitching staff from that year. You look at theirs, Jimmy Nelson as their ace, Zach Davies in the rotation, Chase Anderson, Willie Peralta, Junior Guerrera. Like, that rotation is not up to par to what, in my opinion, of what the Mets could be. Their bullpen was definitely very solid, but they didn't even have that much depth that year. It took a bit to build. That's why I'm saying that I'm ready to embrace this journey, because I'm not going to sit here and claim that this is going to be the year where the Mets go far. But for a feel it out year, I cannot complain with if they sneak into the playoffs, especially given what the Brewers did in their first full year under Stearns. I can't complain if they sneak into the playoffs. And then the year after, they go 86 and 79, which didn't get them into the postseason, but that was when there wasn't a third wildcard spot, so that might have. And then that roster too, that roster was not necessarily the deepest. And then you go the year after, what do they do in 2018? They take the Dodgers, they go toe-to-toe with them in the championship series, and who knows, one game goes their way, and they're in the World Series, and who knows what happens there against the Boston Red Sox. So, I don't know. And then you look even at that 2018 Brewers roster. I like Alvarez way more than Manny Pena. I like Pete Alonso more than Jesus Aguilar, who did have a good year, but still. Jonathan VR was at second for them. Come on, McNeil's upside's better. Arcia had a bad year that year. Lindor's obviously better than Arcia. That dude's just a clown in general. Travis Shaw, I don't know if the Mets are going to get that type of production there where he had 32 home runs and 825 OPS on the year. Going to be hard to get that. Braun, Kanan, and Christian Yelich, though, having that big year is definitely what helped them out in terms of getting in, going to where they didn't getting that far. And then the pitching staff, though, too, on paper doesn't look the best, but it performed better. So if they could get things going right and the pitching lab gets going, their ceiling is so high. Like, the ceiling is high if things go right, but then the floor could be extremely low. So this is going to be a mixed bag season for the Mets, but to me, I just like how much deeper this team is than in years prior. Maybe I'm a sucker. Maybe I'm delusional, but that's just how I'm feeling right now, and I had to spit my mind on it. But let me know your thoughts on this team right now in the comment section down below. Would love to hear from you guys. Don't forget to leave a like if you haven't already. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Let's go, Mets.